Now, for folks who live in Minnesota or folks who watch news keenly, you probably already know about this recent, really tragic event that just happened a few days ago. And for folks who will be watching this video a while, some time away from now, this is April 2025, and an incident just happened in somewhere in Minnesota that led to the death of two people, one of them being a Kenyan female nurse practitioner. Really, really tragic. But before we talk about this event, I want to welcome you again back to Karating, which is a village in Western Kenya. Today I'm actually starting the day at my parents' home. We are expecting guests, and so as always in the village, when you're expecting guests, you bring sodas and things like that. And so the whole video is going to just show you how we are getting together and putting a few things together before our guests come sometime in the afternoon. Now, if you're watching us for the first time, I'm a Kenyan American who lives both in Karating, in Kisumu, in Western Kenya, and live in Long Beach, California. So I spent a few months in Kenya and a few months in the US, and I go back and forth. And my goal is to eventually to return permanently to the village. Now, in doing that, I'm involved in quite a few things, especially around construction. I help future returnees with construction projects, land and things like that. So my job is to listen to you and connect you with the right experts. We have architects, we have builders, we have interior designers and things like that. So that's what I do on my spare time, but I'm also a professional educator. That's what I do during the day, and I also build. And so please be sure to support us by subscribing if you have not. Most of my viewers enjoy our content but have not subscribed. So just check if you're one of those. Subscribe. And if you have any concerns that we could help with, be sure to reach out using the number that I post on my channel. So anyway, back to our story. Join me and let's just review this not so fun event, which again is not unusual. These stories abound. Things like this have happened and unfortunately likely will continue happening. So for those of you who watch news regularly, in Kenya, I know people watch news like crazy. My parents would watch news at 4 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, and you repeat the same thing. Personally, I stopped watching news a long time ago, in part because nothing fun ever comes out of news. Rarely do you watch news and you walk away feeling good. And so I tell myself, if something important is happening, I'll know about it, just like this. But I absolutely stay away from news. So anyway, some of the media reports that I've seen out there seem to indicate that there was an incident somewhere in Ramsey, I believe it's Ramsey in Minnesota, where a Kenyan diasporan was killed by a man who must have been connected to her romantically in some way. And this guy also has a very unique name. I'm told he's called Melchizedek, a name that I've not heard about since I was in Sunday school. And so this 42-year-old young woman was shot and killed. And apparently this guy killed himself. So it feels more like a murder-suicide type of a thing. And some people seem to suggest that I think maybe at least one of the kids must have been fathered by this guy. So at this point, it doesn't appear like there's much information out there. And those who live in Minnesota who may know more can tell us. There's not a whole lot of information available, but it sounds like some kind of a domestic situation that must have really gone wrong. Now, this young woman who's dead is called Hulda or Halda. I don't know what the correct pronunciation is. Hulda Musiori. And it sounds like she's from the island of Kisi, who was a mental health nurse practitioner from the reports, and must have married or had some kind of a thing with this guy who apparently comes from West Africa, possibly Sierra Leone. And they went apart at some point and may have had a child together. We don't know how many out of her 4 kids. And so for the most part, the current information seems to suggest it must have been some kind of a domestic situation going on. The authorities are exploring the dynamics of what could have happened. Still, not much has been made publicly available, but I suppose those who are in her cycles may know more about what's going on. So again, this is absolutely horrendous. When you find a very promising young woman who is very well educated, doing her thing. She was also an entrepreneur. I'm sure she's got family members who love her, and this is not fun. I've been in this part where a family member dies suddenly, unexpectedly, and it is very tough, especially when you hear people say things that are not accurate about the person involved. So I will refrain from saying much until all the facts come out clearly. But this tragic event reminds me of some of the things that have happened, especially for those who live in the U.S. You may be aware of the case of Mary Njoki Stanton, who also was in her 40s at the time she was killed by her husband. And unfortunately, in this case, her husband killed her and killed all of her daughters, I think, or at least two of her daughters. And I don't know if in this case the guy survived or killed himself, but this happened not too long ago. And this must have happened, I believe, in Louisville, Kentucky. So again, not too long ago, too, you also had the case of Dorothy Ongera. I believe this must have happened in Dallas. Something unusual, but our family members were saying that there was more to her death than what would have been typically expected. And again, for those who live in Boston, you remember the case of Margaret Mbitu, who also was killed and found packed in her car. And I think the killer must have been a fellow Kenyan. So unfortunately, these issues of domestic violence that lead to death happen even amongst diasporans. And so the circumstances leading up to these events are quite varied. And the risk factors are really numerous. So unless there's some systematic study out there, I would refrain from giving hard facts as to how these things happen. So we only have anecdotal evidence showing what really happens or what we think leads to these events. So again, without proper research, it's hard to put a definitive description with a high degree of confidence. Because again, oftentimes, when you are far removed from such events, you can be so wrong about what's going on. I remember when my brother died in an accident. A lot of people said so many things that were so wrong and inaccurate. So again, I always say, if you're not very well informed, it's okay to ask questions. You can talk about it, but be very measured in how you speak, because oftentimes we spread lots of falsehoods that may be very harmful to the families dealing with all this. So my heart really goes out to the families involved, especially the parents, the children, the siblings. You can only imagine what they're going through right now. So again, for folks out there, please refrain from saying all kinds of things that are not supported by facts. So however, in general, besides this particular case, I would say that there are certain facts that typically are linked to these events. And these ones may or may not have anything to do with this specific case. Number one is that one reality that we know, having lived in diaspora, is that diaspora is not often as safe as we are made to think when we first move to the US. In fact, it's very easy for somebody to kill you in the US. And partly because, number one, we have almost unlimited access to guns. You can pretty much go to the store, and once you've gone through a little bit of paperwork, depending on the state you live in, or if you go to a gun show or some of these private sellers, you can pretty much walk in and walk out with a gun. So in the US, it's very easy to kill a person, maybe much more so compared to living in the village. And then if you look at our homes, look at the windows and the doors that we construct. Like in my house in Long Beach, you could pretty much just walk through the windows. There are no grills, it's just massive glass windows. The doors are those ones that you just kick in and come in. So the designs of our homes cannot be compared with what you're seeing here in the village. Because here, these doors are those doors you can just walk through in the same way you do. So the homes we live in may not be as secure as the ones that we build in the village. And the systems that are put in place to protect victims give the impression of safety, but they're not often as safe. For example, when a victim goes out and gets a restraining order, there are so many people killed, even with the presence of a restraining order. So those things are there, but they don't often work as well as they're intended. And then for some reason, it feels like there's a whole lot more crazy people in diaspora, maybe than we do find in the village. I don't know why that is the case. Could be because of access to drugs, issues with mental health, potential personality problems. It just feels like we have a lot more crazy people out here than we do in the villages where we live. And then, again, one thing I don't like to do is to blame victims of crime. And so this is one point I don't like to talk about, but I must highlight that sometimes I've seen cases where a partner changes his or her mind, and that is often used as an excuse to harm them. Like a case where a young man brings a woman from Kenya with the intention of living with her as a spouse, and then after the woman gets her way around, she leaves and moves on. And so this terrible human being uses that as an excuse to harm her. Again, keep it in context. These things should not be used to blame victims. And then unfortunately, we have certain systems within diaspora that can really push people beyond what's their breaking point. For example, this work-school routine, work-home routine, where most of us, or a lot of us, either you're at home or you're at work, home at work, we barely have lives outside of work and home. That for many, many years can get to you. And then now, when you come to this world of child protective services, where somebody could easily take your child away for some very, very silly reasons. So it's a system that was built to protect kids, but I've seen it being used against parents. And then you have cases where somebody is tied to child support in ways that they can barely have a life. And then you have custody issues where one spouse decides to take a kid away from the parents simply because they are jilted, not because they think that their child is going to be unsafe. So issues around CPS, child support, child custody, and this is even worse when it comes to alimony. It's another problem that I don't know whether in Kenya spouses pay alimony, maybe not. But here in the US, it does exist. And with all these things put together, those systems can really push people beyond their limits. And so for some people, you just snap. How people get there, I don't know. So again, what I would say in general is that nothing is worth your life. Nothing really is worth your life. If you need to run, run. If you need to move, move. Nothing is worth your life. And I hope you stay safe there, and I hope the families that are impacted are going to find some comfort. Well, that will be it for today, and I will see you guys in the next. Thank you.